Welcome to Reset with Ball Doggett, a conversation connecting our industry. I'm Tony Bertrand, the National Marketing Manager for Ball Doggett, and today we're lucky enough to be joined on Reset by Jason O'Connor from Snap Printing in Eastwood in New South Wales, and also Tony Masters from Morgan Printing, also in New South Wales. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Tony.
Great to have you both join us today on Reset, so thank you very much for your time. I'm looking forward to really exploring the wonderful world of print. I know you guys are passionate printers, so I'm sure we're up for some great discussion. You may not always agree, but that's okay. If you don't, that's fine. Just say it, because the viewers will love it. So I'm looking forward to the discussion. So thanks very much. But look, just before we do that, I want our viewers to get to know you guys a little bit. So I'll work through a little bit of a bio that you guys have provided for us. Jason, you've been in and around working for the industry for about 30 years. And over those years, you've seen a lot of change. You and your wife are also the owners of Snap Eastwood. And that over those 30 years, the change that no doubt you and your wife have seen in the business and also in the industry. But you're right that there's the test that we're now experiencing is pretty tough. So you've experienced nothing like this to date. So we'll get your thoughts and views on that in a little bit of in a little time. Tony Masters, along with your wife Holly, you're the owner of Morgan Printing, located in Sydney's inner west. Business has been around for 40 years. We're not sure why the name is Morgan, but that's an interesting point. I think I'm going to find that out. That's going to be a test for me to find out why. We produce a high quality offset digital and letterpress printing. You left high school after you left high school, you started working at Morgan Printing. 26 years ago, you completed your offset litho trade. You moved into operating digital presses and also graphic design. And with your wife, you purchased the business in 2013. Although it's been in your family for those 40 years. You've got a team of skilled printers and customer service staff. I think, there's no doubt you're a passionate man when it comes to the print industry. Your environmental credentials are outstanding. And you also believe that the position that print holds is a very credible, reliable, and a performing communication method, which I totally agree with you 100% on that. So welcome, gentlemen, and thanks again for your time.
Thanks, Tom.
Let's start. We're looking at 5 months since we've had this situation. It's been a long time that we've had to endure change and uncertainty. Jason, if I can put this to you, I mean, out of all of this, I mean, over all this time, I mean, how are you doing, and how is your team doing?
It has been 5 months. You say it like that, you forget it's been that long, isn't it? It just sort of blurs into one big day most a lot of the time. But overall, we're going okay. It's we've adjusted pretty early on in the piece. We've got a couple of people working from home on a full-time basis. We've been open the whole time. We haven't sort of changed anything different there. I've got some of the staff on some 4-day weeks, which we had to cut back a little bit on, and that's sort of carrying through. But the sort of we've stayed pretty constant through the whole time. We've constantly give updates to the staff to make them sort of feel at ease at the same time. And it's one of these things. It's an old cliche, but rather than a day at a time, you're taking a month at a time at the moment, and sort of planning a month in ahead. Family coming back to them also, and they're all good. I've got 4 kids, one's at school and 3 are sort of out in the workplace, and we've got 1 working at home and 2 actually working with us too. So it's pretty good, but it's I think almost a little bit lucky too, because we're not in some of those terrible industries which has been absolutely decimated, like hospitality and travel and those sort of things. Where I feel for those guys. At least we can sort of kick on and do our bit also and keep things rolling.
Yeah, as you say, I mean, for a lot of those printers who do either specialise or have a large percentage of their business in the industries that have been affected the worst, like tourism, for instance. I mean, they must be really, really suffering. And our heart goes out to those guys and to the people working in those businesses, because it must be very difficult to keep positive on a day-to-day basis when you're faced with those sorts of challenges.
Absolutely.
Tony Masters, how you doing, mate? How are you coping?
Yeah, all good, mate. Like we're all healthy. That's the main thing, I guess. No one's crook. Everyone's still doing what they have to do. We have my wife and I. We have 2 young daughters, 3 and 7. So any downtime we've had, they've sort of helped us fill in all that sort of downtime without too much drama. The eldest one had a bit of homeschooling and stuff like that, which we had to navigate early on. Well, mainly my wife had to navigate. We've stayed open here, so I've pretty much been coming in most days, whether we had anything to do or not. Staff, we've had our printers come in basically when we need them at the moment. There's no real set times or set days based on how much work we've got. Everyone else has really just come to the party, and whatever we needed, they've just put their hand up and helped out in that sort of way. It's just been a bit of a weird sort of feeling, It's something that in all my time as being a printer and in the industry, or in life even, it's just an uncharted territory that you just, as Jay said, you just sort of deal with month to month. So for now, we're just staying positive. There's greener pastures on the horizon. We can see a little bit of extra work coming in month to month, and that's the great thing. But apart from that, mate, we'll just keep on pushing through and doing all the work we can.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, you need to be optimistic, and you need to maintain that optimism. And definitely. Sometimes it's difficult, to do that. Because as you say, I mean, your view is really a month ahead, and say, okay, well, what's the next month? How are we going to deal with this? How are we going to get through? So it can be a lot of pressure on people to remain positive around that.
I think half the battle too is that there's with lots of things that you happen in life, you always see an end game to it. There's a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, where there's no end for this at the moment. So people are unsure when, how long, all that sort of stuff that goes along with it.
Yeah, and you sort of you get your head around where you think things are going to be in a month's time, and things
that changes. Absolutely. Well, look at Victoria. The poor buggers down there, where it seemed to be coming good for. I think everyone was sort of coming good in that month leading up to it, and you could see a bit of positivity coming back into it. And then they had that second wave, which I don't know about you, Tony, but it's the whole business confidence took a bit of a kick in the guts after that, and it sort of pulled up again.
Yeah, definitely. We're sort of seeing, like, it took a little bit of a while, that sort of a movement back to people going, oh, hang on, like having a bit of a think about it again. But all these things that I think the biggest thing in these sort of times is it's so out of your control. Yeah. And every other aspect of your business, you've got that bit of control. You're able to keep your hands in and on all the things that are moving. But even if you've got a good grip of everything at the moment, just like even week to week, something could go wrong that just throws you a curveball, and then you've got to go back to the drawing board again and look at things in other angles. And, it's just a constant, it's a maneuvering around all these things. It's just where that, as you just say, Tony, that stress sort of comes, but positivity is probably the key, I would say.
I suppose on that point, as we've all well documented that we've all faced challenges, and everyone's doing it tough to varying degrees in the industry. Tony, if you could think of a lesson, I suppose, that you've learnt out of the last 5 months, out of this situation that we find ourselves in, and for you personally and your business, I mean, what's the one lesson that you'd say, I'm glad I learnt it, or I'm glad I'm aware of it, and that's going to do me well into the future?
Yep. Well, we've always had a really good hold of our numbers and what we need to do in the business to keep the business moving on a trajectory that's where we want it to go. We're not out to be the biggest printer in Australia by any means, but we like to just make sure that we're doing the little things that we know we can do with our business. But my wife, and we also have a CFO that we work with, a virtual CFO. When all this sort of started to happen, they went into territory where we hadn't really looked at before. We'd always done budgets and things like that, but forward projection of what things would look like should we only get this much income, and then what we'd need to hit this income, and those sorts of things, like really knowing the numbers in the business and really getting down into the nitty gritty of not just having a budget to stick to, but to actually knowing what things would look like when you don't go up to those levels and what you need to do. For me personally, my day-to-day job in the business probably hasn't changed a great deal, but it's more in that side of the business, that behind the scenes, having that robust financial view of the business. I basically get given a number that I make sure that I have to get to at this stage and just do my best, and I hands on the tools and just keep on working in the business. But the main, Holly and our CFO have just been it could be week to week. They just look at numbers again, reassess. We're going good. This is where we need to hit. Okay, we're a bit past that. We're doing well there. Okay, that week drops off. Do your best. Get back on the emails. Like, try and follow up some other work that comes through. It's that for me would probably be the biggest lesson, is that to make sure those numbers in your business are really front of your mind.
It's a good time also too, isn't it, Tony? Because you've got a bit of time up your hands to actually really dig down deep and see what's there.
It is, mate. Yeah. Like the downtime in one essence being the lack of like work to do and stuff like that. Initially, you're like, oh shit, what are we doing here? But as you say, that time where you can actually stop and breathe and step back and look at things from a wider perspective. I think that in small business where you seem to be just on the go all the time, you never really get that chance to step back.
Yeah.
It's been sort of a bit of a, something we can maybe take away from it.
Guys, what's been the lesson, I suppose, that stands out for you?
I think there's a few of them. I totally agree with Tony, just digging down and really sort of dissecting what can and can't be done within your business financially. But I think one of the big lessons that it's almost going back to sales 101 to a certain extent, because we found ourselves doing everything we were doing before, but just 3 times as much. So we're making the phone calls and we're doing the emails, and it's that constant contact with our clients. And a lot of the time it won't end up with a job, but you're just staying in contact with them. And I found it's a nice way just to really cement that relationship with your clients these days too, because everyone's at home, and truthfully, we're all social beings. So when you get them at home, they love a chat too, because there's no one else to chat to there. So we've actually, if anything, we've grown some of those relationships with our clients, and just that little bit stronger. And it goes back. And like Tony mentioned before, with the hustle and bustle of small business, when you're busy, you don't get time to have those 10, 15, 20-minute chats, because you're just always on the go. So just going back and actually respecting because now where you might take your $300, $400, $500, $800 job for granted and get it through the system, it's like a little bit of gold now if it comes in, and you respect that going through the whole process and making sure that you give them that bookend experience. So it sort of just it sort of I don't know, polishes that whole sort of transaction up. Yeah. And I think if we can bring that into when we start getting busy again, it's going to turn us into a far more efficient and better business.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think one of the previous Reset episodes was with a guy named Jason Little from For the People, which is a design agency that actually did our rebrand for Ball Doggett. And his comment around that connection with customers was that he found that those connections were much deeper because you were able to spend more time. Yeah, where before it was very much transactional, working through the process, right? Give me the order, I'll get it on the press and out the door. It's all of a sudden like, hi, how are you?
We've all got that little bit of extra time too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like say you yourself, you find yourself actually asking those extra questions like that aren't related to work.
Yeah.
And you get to know those people that you might have been dealing with for 10 years. Where you'll find out something about them, that really brings, as you say, Jace, that more of an emotional connection with your customers.
Yeah.
And I think there was a movement towards that, especially for our business, in being that sort of a that sort of a person that people could reach out to when they're coming to a business and having that personal connection. But in the last 5 months, that's obviously because we're able to stop and have that connection with them. It's just become threefold. Yeah.
Mm.
No, it's good. It's very worthwhile. Good lessons that you guys have been able to sort of think about, and hopefully others take that on as well. I suppose, topically at the moment, it's quite interesting because print is in the news quite frequently. And last week, our major supermarket, or one of them, Coles Supermarkets, announced that they were no longer going to print catalogues, and that they were going to be promoting all of their products and services online. Tony, wouldn't mind starting with you on this one. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, you look at your Ive Grip, and probably people are going to lose their jobs because of that too. Like, that's one of the top 2 print jobs in Australia to be dropped off the market. They're going to that business themselves. They're going to, even though they're quite a large company, they're going to have to look at their sorts of things. I think I saw $40 million in turnover. They're going to be down. So, like, you think about that, but then you also think about Coles, and I honestly think they'll probably regret the decision. Number one, Woolies are still going to do their printed catalogue, so you lose that exposure there. But then they also, by making that sort of a move, they're telling their customers, we're choosing how you're going to now have to receive that information. They've probably, a lot of elderly customers probably don't have that access to the online, or aren't as confident in using it. And it's a way they've probably received that information and trusted that information for, well, as long as they've been going and shopping at Coles, I reckon probably the thing that sort of cut me the most was the comment that the reason was because it was not good for the environment.
Yeah.
which is like probably disingenuous and a bit ignorant of Coles to say that sort of thing, especially when they're going to continue printing their Coles magazine as well.
Yeah.
By the look of it.
Kelly came out, Tone, didn't she also? She came out and sort of debunked that one pretty well.
Debunked it, yeah. I mean, but the big companies like that, they will try and cut a corner somewhere. It's a public company, so realistically, what's the easiest thing to cut off is probably a marketing, something they can put online. But they have to probably understand that not everyone wants things delivered digitally these days. Like, we're getting so much stuff digitally already, and something that's going to go in your email inbox is something that's easily going to be deleted or clicked over, and it's just not going to have that longevity or that tactile feel that people still like to be communicated to.
No, agreed. Chase, what's your view on this?
Totally agree with Tony on this one. It's I think what got me angry is that environmental stance they took on it, which was just, and it's been proven that the CO2 footprint's bigger on the digital delivery for something like that. But I think for a big corporate like that, like Coles, what are they turning over? In 2019, there was $38 billion or $40 billion or something like that. And so actually, for these big behemoths, it should be about timing. To cut it off in this time where we are now, and they go, "Oh, COVID's brought us that." That's rubbish. Like, it's $40 or $50 million, and it's that whole domino effect that who it's going to affect. Like, as Tone said, you got 40 million in Ive, and then there's I don't know if you guys were supplying the paper to that one or whether they're getting elsewhere, but there's your paper people, there's your Ive people, and then you've got your distribution people. Well, this just goes down the line, and timing is everything with these sort of decisions, and it's going to leave a sour taste in people's mouths. I know I won't be shopping at Coles. I used to, but just for that reason alone, I'll go to Woolies. And I think there's a bit of an angry uproar with this sort of for that decision to be made. I think it's ridiculous, especially if Coles now in a boom time. This is probably the best time they've had for years, and they said, "Oh, well, we're actually killing it. Let's cut some more dollars off and affect some of the Australian public who buy from us."
Yeah, I think it's. I think that's the difficulty people have with this decision is that, the supermarkets have actually prospered over this period. They've done extremely well from consumers, and as you say, I mean that's a print job that's locally produced and will have a huge impact. Not only on Coles customers, but also, as you say, the flow-on effect from that. Do you think, Jace, that this decision by Coles has any sort of impact more broadly around print?
Around print itself?
Yeah. So, I mean, the decision Coles took to not print, does that say anything about print that others would then look at it and go, well...
Yeah. I think everyone's going to jump on that bandwagon because everyone who you speak to who's not in print will always come back, oh, isn't print dead? Well, no, it's not dead. And this is the sort of that's the thing that's going to reinforce their statement. Oh, print's dead because Coles isn't print anymore. So it will hurt that whole people outside the industry because they'll get that feeling that print's dying away, which is it's not a great thing for it. So I think there is a little bit that's going to impact on it. I do believe.
Yeah, I think it's it's an interesting take on what they're doing. I agree, Tony, with you in your comment about I think they'll come to regret it, the decision. And I think well, let's hope that they will reconsider their position and go back to a printed catalogue.
Somewhere along the line, mate, with those public companies, there's a board of directors, there's shareholders. If there's a downturn because of it and people start to not go there, then someone's going to be paying the price for it. So
exactly.
I'd love to see the real media collective actually just keep on it. Also, I think what they need to do now is just keep on fighting that battle and getting it out there, because I think you don't want these things to just be swept under the carpet and disappear in a month's time. I think they need constant reminders of it.
Yeah, I think Woolies coming out pretty quickly as well and saying that no, we're not stopping doing ours. I think that also helps the argument. I mean, this printers dead thing's been going around for 10 years?
Probably
exactly. Longer. Yeah. As long as print's been going. But Woolies coming out in support of keeping printing their catalogues and that sort of stuff. I think that's another step that supports the case as well. So while you get that bit of information that people might look at the Coles pulling out and saying, oh, well, that supports the argument. I think Woolies' statement as well also comes back against that. So I think it's, time will tell, mate.
Yeah, time will tell. But it's good that, as you say, Woolworths reinforced the fact that print works for them. It drives business. Customers want. I agree. The demographics of customers who use catalogues. Sure, the young people may like to do it on phones, but I know my wife likes getting the catalogues in the mail because then she can plan out her shopping, what's on special, what's not, new products, all that sort of thing. So it definitely has a role to play, and let's hope Coles' decision is a bit short-sighted, and before we know it, they'll be back on board. I suppose we are an industry that's been under a lot of pressure for a long time, and there's been a lot of critics about our industry and saying, print's dead and all this sort of stuff. But we just keep going. We're a bunch of resilient mugs that just go, we're not going to put up with that rubbish. We're just going to keep going. And we do. I suppose what if you were talking to young people leaving high school or, looking for a career, I mean, what would you say to them about the print industry? Jace, can you want to tackle that one first?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it's you can see a lot of the apprenticeships coming down dramatically for people coming into the print industry. So it's a tough one to get into. So thinking about it, you'd almost try, and I can't really speak for the bigger guys because I don't know how to drag them in there, the big offset guys like Ivan and all the rest of it. But I'd drag them in my opinion, with some of the great technology coming out at the moment, which complements a lot of the print that we do. We're looking into some AR stuff at the moment, which is some augmented reality stuff, which is really, really cool for just adding that little bit extra. Some of the web to print type stuff and e-commerce models in there. That's if we package it around the technology side of how the technology can complement print. I think it'll get them involved in the industry a little bit more, because it's we got more and more technology coming out every day of what can complement our industry.
Tone, what's your...
Yeah, I agree with you, Jace. I think technology is the key because young people tend to move towards any sort of new technology, and they're very fast at picking it up as well.
Yeah.
I think to get them in the door is the key initially, and then I think that the communication to young people being that once you're in, it's such a large industry, the print and graphic arts industry, that it's so diversified the things you can actually do within the industry as well. You don't get pigeonholed. You may start out with a trade or something like that, or go graphic design, but you can move in so many other directions once you're in the industry. Like, take my example for just the 26 years that I've been in, out of high school, not knowing what I was even going to do. Started doing a bit of deliveries, did a printing trade, moved into digital presses, did letterpress, graphic design, sales, pretty much the whole plethora of jobs that you can possibly do. For young people, you'll find the right fit for the industry as well. I don't think it's probably not the right fit for everyone, but curious minds and the technology that is onboarding in the printing industry is definitely the way to get them in the door.
Even with the graphic designers, the young graphic designers coming out now with some of the new digital presses out there at the moment, they're sort of, it gives them a lot more ability to use their creative brains for all the whites and the clears and the metallics and all that sort of, the neons and all that sort of stuff coming out these days.
I think that curiosity also genuinely leads into, that's how an offset press works, or that's how letterpress. Oh, geez, I never even thought about letterpress. Like, we do, over the years, we've dealt with a lot of designers at schools and stuff like that. And when we get them to come and have a walk through, they're like, "Wow, I didn't even know what a printing place looked like," And I think that's the challenge. Is, as you say, how well the number of apprenticeships is actually going down. It's actually getting them into print places, because the automatic thing kids think about when they think of printing, I'm sure, is still newspapers. And how many newspapers they're shutting down newspapers now as well, like left, right, and centre. So getting them in early, getting them in to look at what things actually, how things happen in printing places is key as well.
I think it's interesting, letterpress, perfect example, Tony. I mean, letterpress has been around for 100 years.
Yeah, a lot more.
And now it's a very exciting market for letterpress. I mean, people love letterpress. I mean, and it's sort of come back. Before it was sort of something that was very sort of a bit mysterious, letterpress, and it was sort of a bit difficult to find and all that sort of stuff. Now you're getting some real specialists like your business, which is able to offer that sort of service to people, and people love it. I mean, it's a gorgeous form of printing. It really is nice. But I think you're right. The technology is where the young people want to be, right? The whole idea of variable data, the whole idea of customization, personalization, the one-to-one opportunity that we have in the print industry to communicate to people, to our clients' customers, is unprecedented. I mean, we've got such a great opportunity there, and the technology side of things is exciting, and that's, I know that, the young people that we employ in our business, I mean, we employ them and they all sit in the technology space. Exactly where they want to be. They want to drive the business via technology, and that's great. And if that's what they want to be, we've got to roll with that, and we've got to develop that further. So,
well, that one-to-one personalisation of the variable data type stuff, that's the actual thing that's growing within our industry.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing that we need to concentrate on, and as I said, more and more stuff's going to come out around that. So that's the future of that sort of stuff.
Very exciting stuff. Well, gentlemen, look, thank you so much. Really appreciated your time today to come on to Reset with Ball and Doggett. I've loved chatting with you guys. You continue to be very optimistic about our industry. The positiveness about this conversation we've had today shows that the industry is in very good hands, and we'll get through this, and we'll prosper, and we'll all go out to lunch or something.
Sounds good.
Sounds like a good idea. We have to have one lunch in 10 years. Look, thank you again very much for that. It was a terrific session. To our viewers, like with all our episodes, we ask our guests a question, which is, what does optimism look like for you and your business right now? Head down to the bottom of this video and you can see the responses there from Jason and Tony. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel whilst you're there as well, where you can stay connected with Ball and Doggett as we release our weekly episodes. So until next time, I'm Tony Bertrand from Ball and Doggett. Stay well.
Thanks, Tony.